Star Trek fans don't want to admit it, but one of TNG's biggest critiques is 100% correct. When Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered in 1987, it was met with skepticism, excitement, and plenty of baggage. The idea of continuing Star Trek without Captain Kirk and Spock seemed almost sacrilegious, but as the series settled into its seven-season run, it became a cultural juggernaut and one of the franchise's most beloved entries. Today, TNG is often placed on a pedestal by fans who consider it the intellectual and emotional high point of the franchise. But here's the truth. One of the show's biggest critiques, often raised by detractors and quietly acknowledged by even loyal fans, is absolutely correct. For all its brilliance, TNG often leaned too hard into its utopian vision of the future, creating characters and dynamics that sometimes felt sterile, conflict-free, and overly polished. In other words, the show's characters could feel like flawless paragons rather than messy, human beings. And no matter how much fans may want to defend the series, that critique is valid. The problem of perfection. The TNG crew are supposed to embody Gene Roddenberry's vision of a humanity that has overcome war, poverty, prejudice, and petty conflict. It's an inspiring idea and one that sets Star Trek apart from other science fiction. The 24th century was portrayed as a near utopia, a society that had transcended many of the flaws that hold us back today. The problem? This utopian ideal didn't always translate well into drama. Roddenberry infamously insisted that the crew of the Enterprise D should not engage in interpersonal conflict. To him, humanity had moved beyond such squabbles. While that philosophy was admirable, it left writers in a bind. How do you build compelling tension in a character-driven story if your characters never clash? The result was that the crew sometimes felt impossibly calm, rational, and almost too good to be true. Captain Picard, Commander Riker, Data, Worf, Troy, Geordi, and Beverly Crusher were competent and professional to the point of being untouchable. While that reinforced the aspirational nature of TNG, it also made the show feel emotionally sterile compared to its successors, particularly Deep Space Nine, which thrived on messy interpersonal drama. The Boy Scout reputation. Even during its original run, critics noticed this tendency toward perfection. TNG earned the reputation of being too clean, with some even comparing the crew to a group of spacefaring Boy Scouts. In moments of crisis, they always managed to solve problems with calm discussions, logical deductions, and Federation values. Rarely did personal flaws or rivalries play a significant role. Contrast this with the original series, where Captain Kirk often clashed with Spock and McCoy in ways that highlighted their humanity. Or look at DS9, where characters like Sisko, Kira, and Odo regularly grappled with anger, guilt, prejudice, and moral compromise. Compared to them, the Enterprise D crew could feel more like a set of idealized archetypes than real people. Of course, there were exceptions. Worf's struggle with Klingon honor, Data's search for humanity, and Picard's trauma after the Borg abduction gave us some of TNG's best storytelling. But those arcs were often framed as explorations of philosophy and identity rather than interpersonal drama. Why fans resist the critique? Part of the reason fans resist acknowledging this flaw is because TNG's optimism is so deeply beloved. The show's vision of the future is one of the most comforting and inspiring aspects of the franchise. In a world filled with real-life conflict and cynicism, it's refreshing to watch a story where people strive to be their best selves and succeed. For many, the lack of interpersonal conflict isn't a flaw, it's a feature. It sets Star Trek apart from darker, grittier sci-fi. Picard's diplomacy-first leadership style, Riker's steady reliability, and the crew's unwavering loyalty to one another paint a picture of a world we want to live in, not just one we want to watch. Still, when looking at TNG strictly as drama, the critique holds water. Utopian ideals may be inspiring, but drama thrives on conflict. Without it, episodes sometimes lack stakes or emotional bite, relying instead on technobabble or external threats to drive the narrative. How later shows addressed it. Interestingly, the very critique that dogs TNG helped shape the direction of later Star Trek series. DS9 leaned into interpersonal conflict and moral ambiguity, proving that Star Trek could still embody optimism while exploring darker shades of humanity. Voyager attempted a middle ground, with its crew pulled between Starfleet ideals and Maquis rebellion. Enterprise pushed further into flawed, pre-Federation humans learning to live up to Roddenberry's vision. Even Star Trek. Picard has built much of its dramatic weight on showing how Picard,